The names of the sun are these: one, Aries, the other, Thomas. The moon has 4 names. The first is Asonia, the second, Ebla, the third, Benassi, and the fourth, Irae. These are the 2 great luminaries, whose orbs are as the orbs of heaven, and the dimensions of both are equal. In the orb of the sun are 7 parts of light, which are added to it more than to the moon. By measure it is put in until the 7th portion of the sun is departed. They enter into the western gate, circuit by the north, and through the eastern gate go forth over the face of heaven. When the moon rises, it appears in heaven, and the half of a 7th portion of light is all in it. In 14, the whole of its light is completed. 3 quintuples light is put into it, until 15 its light is completed, according to the signs of the year. It has 3 quintuples. The moon has the half of a 7th portion. During its diminution, on the first day, its light decreases a 14th part. On the second day, it decreases a 13th part. On the third day, a 12th part. On the 4th day, an 11th part. On the 5th day, a 10th part. On the 6th day, a 9th part. On the 7th day, it decreases an 8th part. On the 8th day, it decreases a 7th part. On the 9th day, it decreases a 6th part. On the 10th day, it decreases a 5th part. And on the 11th day, it decreases a 4th part. On the 12th day, it decreases a 3rd part. On the 13th day, it decreases a 2nd part. And on the 14th day, it decreases a half of its 7th part. And on the 15th day, the whole remainder of its light is consumed. On stated months, the moon has 29 days. It also has a period of 28 days. Uriel likewise showed me another regulation. When light is poured into the moon, how it is poured into it from the sun. All the time that the moon is in progress with its light, it is poured in the presence of the sun, until light is in 14 days completed in heaven. And when it is wholly extinguished, its light is consumed in heaven, and on the first day it is called the new moon, for on that day light is received into it. It becomes precisely completed on the day that the sun descends into the west, while the moon ascends at night from the east. The moon then shines all the night until the sun rises before it, when the moon disappears in turn before the sun. Where light comes to the moon, there again it decreases, until all its light is extinguished, and the days of the moon pass away. Then its orb remains solitary without light. During 3 months, it effects in 30 days, in period. And during these 3 months, it effects it in 29 days each, in which it effects its decrease in its first period, and in the first gate in 177 days. And at the time of its going forth, 3 months it appears 30 days each, and during 3 months it appears 29 days each. In the night it appears for each 20 as a man, and in the day as heaven, for it is nothing else except its light. And now, my son Methuselah, I have shown you everything, and every ordinance of the stars of heaven is finished. He showed me every ordinance respecting these, which is at all times and in all seasons, under every influence, in all years, at the arrival and under the rule of each day, during every month and every week. Also, the decrease of the moon, which is affected in the sixth gate, for in that sixth gate is its light consumed. From this is the beginning of the month, and its decrease is effected in the sixth gate, in its period, until 177 days are completed, according to the mode of calculation by weeks, 25 and 2 days. It is less than that of the sun, according to the ordinance of the stars, by 5 days in one time precisely. When that visible situation is completed, such is the appearance and likeness of every luminary, which Uriel, the great angel who conducts them, showed to me. In those days Uriel answered and said to me, Behold, I have shown you all things, O Enoch, and all things have I revealed to you. You see the sun, the moon, and those which conduct the stars of heaven, which cause all their operations, seasons, and arrivals to return. In the days of sinners the years shall be shortened. Their seed shall be backward in their prolific soil, and everything done on earth shall be subverted and disappear in its season. The rain shall be restrained, and heaven shall stand still. In those days the fruits of the earth shall be let, and not flourish in their season. And in their season the fruits of the trees shall be withheld. The moon shall change its laws, and not be seen at its proper period. But in those days shall heaven be seen, and barrenness shall take place in the borders of the great chariots in the west. It shall shine more than the orders of light, while many chiefs among the stars of authority shall err, perverting their ways and works. Those shall not appear in their season who command them, and all the classes of the stars shall be shut up against sinners. The thoughts of those who dwell on the earth shall transgress within them, and they shall be perverted in all their ways. They shall transgress and think themselves Elohim, while evil shall be multiplied among them, and punishment shall come upon them, so that all of them shall be destroyed. He said, O Enoch, look on the sefer of the tablets of heaven, which have gradually dropped down, and, reading that which is written in it, understand every part of it. Then I looked on all which was written, and understood all, reading the sefer and everything written in it, all the works of man, and of all the children of flesh upon the earth during the generations of the world. Immediately after I blessed Yahweh, the King of glory, who has thus forever formed the whole workmanship of the world. And I glorified Yahweh on account of his long suffering and blessing toward the children of the world. At that time I said, Blessed is the man who shall die righteous and good, against whom no catalogue of crime has been written, and with whom iniquity is not found. Then those 3 holy ones caused me to approach, and placed me on the earth before the door of my house. And they said unto me, Explain everything to Methuselah, your son, and inform all your children, that no flesh shall be justified before Yahweh, for he is their creator. During 1 year we shall leave you with your children, until you shall again recover your strength, that you may instruct your family. Write these things, and explain them to all your children. But in another year they shall take you from the midst of them, and your heart shall be strengthened, for the elect shall point out righteousness to the elect. The righteous with the righteous shall rejoice, congratulating each other, but the sinners with sinners shall die, and the perverted with the perverted shall be drowned. Those likewise who act righteously shall die on account of the works of man, and shall be gathered together on account of the works of the wicked. In those days they finished conversing with me, and I returned to my fellow men, blessing Yahweh of worlds. Now, my son, Methuselah, all these things I speak unto you and write for you. To you I have revealed all, and have given you my sepharim of everything. Preserve, my son, Methuselah, the sepharim written by your father, that you may reveal them to future generations. Wisdom have I given you to your children and your posterity, that they may reveal to their children for generations forever this wisdom in their thoughts, and that those who comprehend may not slumber, but hear with their ears, that they may learn the wisdom and be deemed worthy of eating wholesome food. Blessed are all the righteous, blessed are all who walk in righteousness, in whom is no crime, as in sinners, when all their days are numbered. With respect to the progress of the sun in heaven, it enters and goes out of the gate for 30 days, with the leaders of 1,000 classes of the stars, with 4 which are added, and appertain to the 4 quarters of the year, which conduct them and accompany them at 4 periods. Respecting these, men greatly err, and do not calculate them in the calculation of every age, for they greatly err respecting them, nor do men know accurately that they are in the calculation of the year. But indeed, these are marked down forever, 1 in the first gate, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth, and 1 in the sixth, so that the year is completed in 364 days. Truly has been stated and accurately has been calculated that which is marked down. For the luminaries, the months, the fixed periods, the years, and the days, Uriel has explained to me and communicated to me, whom your Yahweh of all creation on my account commanded, according to the might of heaven and the power which it possesses both by night and by day, to explain light to man of the sun, moon, and stars, and of all the powers of heaven, which are turned with their respective orbs. This is the ordinance of the stars, which set in their places, in their seasons, in their periods, in their days, and in their months. These are the names of those who conduct them, who watch and enter in their seasons, according to their ordinance in their periods, in their months, in their influence, and in their stations. 4 conductors of them first enter, who separate the 4 quarters of the year. After these, 12 conductors of their classes, who separate the months and the year, 364, with the leaders of 1,000, who distinguish between the days as well as between the 4 additional ones, which conductors divide the 4 quarters of the year. These leaders of 1,000 are in the midst of the conductors, and the conductors are added each behind his station, and their conductors make the separation. These are the names of the conductors who separate the 4 quarters of the year, who are appointed: Malkiel, Hela-Meklak, Meliel, and Nar-al. And the names of those who conduct them are Adnar-al, Yaas-al, and Lemuel. These are the 3 who follow after the conductors of the classes, each following after the 3 conductors of the classes, which themselves follow after these conductors of the stations, who divide the 4 quarters of the year. In the first part of the year rises and rules Malchias, who is named Tamnani, and Zahai. All the days of his influence which he rules are 91 days. And these are the signs of the days which are seen upon the earth. In the days of his influence, perspiration, heat, and trouble. All the trees become fruitful. The leaf of every tree comes forth. The grain is reaped, the rose and every species of flowers blossoms in the field, and the trees of winter are dried up. These are the names of the conductors who are under them: Barkel, Zalsabaal, and another additional conductor of 1,000 is named Heloyalef, and the days of those influence have been completed. The other conductor next to after them is Helem Melech, whose name they call the splendid Zahai. All the days of his light are 91 days. These are the signs of the days upon earth, heat and drought, while the trees bring forth their fruits, warmed and concocted, and give their fruits to dry. The flocks follow, mate, and bear young. All the fruits of the earth are collected, with everything in the fields, and the vines are trodden. This takes place during the time of his influence. These are the names and the orders and the conductors who are under them, of those who are chiefs of 1,000. Gedai El, Kiel, Hiel. And the name of the additional leader of 1,000 is Asphaiel. The days of his influence have been completed. And now I have shown you, my son, Methuselah, every sight which I saw prior to your birth. I will relate another vision, which I saw before I was married. They resemble each other. The first was when I was learning a sefer, and the other before I was married to your mother. I saw a potent vision, and on account of these things besought Yahweh. I was lying down in the house of my grandfather, Malal-el. I saw in a vision heaven thrown down and removed. And when it fell upon the earth, I saw likewise the earth absorbed by a great abyss, and mountains suspended over mountains. Hills were sinking upon hills. Lofty trees were gliding off from their trunks, and were in the act of being projected and of sinking into the abyss. And at these things the word fell down in my mouth. I cried out and said, "The earth is destroyed." Then my grandfather, Malal-el, raised me up and said to me, "Why do you thus cry out, my son? And wherefore thus do you lament?" I related to him the whole vision which I had seen. He said to me, "Confirmed is that which you have seen, my son, and potent the vision of your dream respecting every secret sin of the earth. Its substance shall sink into the abyss, and a great destruction take place. Now, my son, rise up and beseech Yahweh of glory, for you are faithful, that a remnant may be left upon the earth, and that he would not wholly destroy it. My son, all this calamity upon earth comes down from heaven. Upon earth shall there be a great destruction. Then I arose, prayed, and entreated, and wrote down my prayer for the generations of the world, explaining everything to my son, Methuselah. When I went down below and looking up to heaven, beheld the sun proceeding from the east, the moon descending to the west, a few stars, and everything which Elohim has known from the beginning, I blessed Yahweh of judgment and magnified him, because he has sent forth the sun from the windows of the east, that, ascending and rising in the face of heaven, it might spring up and pursue the path which has been appointed out to it. I lifted up my hands in righteousness and blessed the Holy and the Great One. I spoke with the breath of my mouth and with a tongue of flesh, which Elohim has formed for all the sons of mortal men, that with it they may speak, giving them breath, a mouth, and a tongue to converse with. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, the King, great and powerful in your greatness, Yahweh of all the creatures of heaven, King of kings, Elohim of the whole world, whose reign, whose kingdom, and whose majesty endure forever and ever. From generation to generation shall your dominion exist. All the heavens are your throne forever, and all the earth your footstool forever and ever. For you have made them, and over all your reign, no act whatsoever exceeds your power. With your wisdom is unchangeable, nor from your throne and from your presence is it ever averted. You know all things, see and hear them, nor is anything concealed from you. For you perceive all things. The angels of your heavens have transgressed, and on mortal flesh shall your wrath remain until the day of the great judgment. Now then, O Elohim, Yahweh and mighty King, I entreat you and beseech you to grant my prayer, that a posterity may be left to me on earth, and that all of mankind may not perish, that the earth may not be left destitute, and destruction take place forever. O Adonai, let the race perish from off the earth which has offended you, but a righteous and upright race establish for the plant of a seed forever. Hide not your face, O Yahweh, from the prayer of your servant. After this I saw another dream, and explained it to all you, my son. Shinnok arose and said to his son, Methuselah, to you, my son, will I speak. Hear my word, and incline your ear to the visionary dream of your father. Before I married your mother, Edna, I saw a vision on my bed, and behold, a cow sprung forth from the earth, and this cow was white. Afterwards, a female heifer sprung forth, and with it another heifer. The one was black, and the one was red. The black heifer was struck, then struck the red one, and pursued it over the earth. From that period I could see nothing more of the red heifer, but the black one increased in bulk, and a female heifer came with him. After this I saw that many cows proceeded forth, resembling him, and following after him. The first female young one also went out in the presence of the first cow, and sought the red heifer, but found him not. And she lamented with a great lamentation while she was seeking him. Then I looked until that first cow came to her, from which time she became silent and ceased to lament. Afterwards she calved another white cow, and again calved many cows and black heifers. In my sleep also I perceived a white bull, which in like manner grew and became a large white bull. After him many white cows came forth, resembling him, and they began to calve many white cows, which resembled them and followed each other. Again I looked attentively while sleeping, and surveyed heaven above, and behold, a single star fell from heaven, which being raised up ate and fed among these cows. After that I perceived other large and black cows, and behold, all of them changed their stalls and pastures, while their young began to lament one with another. Again I looked in my vision and surveyed heaven, when behold I saw many stars, which descended and projected themselves from heaven to where was the first star, into the midst of those young ones, while the cows were with them, feeding in the midst of them. I looked at and observed them, when behold, they all acted after the manner of horses, and began to approach the young cows, all of whom became pregnant, and brought forth elephants, camels, and asses. At these all the cows were alarmed and terrified, when they began biting with their teeth, swallowing, and striking with their horns. They began also to devour the cows, and behold, all the children of the earth trembled, shook with terror at them, and suddenly fled away. Again I perceived them, when they began to strike and to swallow each other, and the earth cried out. Then I raised my eyes a second time toward heaven, and saw in a vision that, behold, there came forth from heaven, as it were the likeness of white men. One came forth from thence, and 3 with him. Those 3 who came forth last seized me by my hand, and raising me up from the generations of the earth, elevated me to a high station. Then they showed me a lofty tower on the earth, while every hill became diminished. And they said, Remain here until you perceive what shall come upon those elephants, camels, and asses, upon the stars, and upon all the cows. Then I looked at that one of the 4 who came forth first. He seized the first star which fell down from heaven, and, binding it hand and foot, he cast it into a valley narrow, deep, stupendous, and gloomy. Then one of them drew his sword and gave it to the elephants, camels, and asses, who began to strike each other. And the whole earth shook on account of them. And when I looked in the vision, behold, one of those 4 angels who came forth, hurled from heaven, collected together, and took all the great stars, whose form partly resembles that of horses, and binding them all hand and foot, cast them into the cavities of the earth. Then one of those 4 went to the white cows and taught them a mystery. While the cow was trembling, it was born and became a man, and fabricated for himself a large ship. In this he dwelt, and 3 cows dwelt with him in that ship, which covered them. Again I lifted up my eyes toward heaven, and saw a lofty roof. Above it were 7 cataracts, which poured forth on a certain village much water. Again I looked, and behold, there were fountains open on the earth in that large village. The water began to boil up and rose over the earth, so that the village was not seen, while its whole soil was covered with water. Much water was over it, darkness and clouds. Then I surveyed the height of this water, and it was elevated above the village. It flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. Then all the cows which were collected there, while I looked on them, were drowned, swallowed up, and destroyed in the water. But the ship floated above it. All the cows, the elephants, the camels, and the asses were drowned on the earth, and all the cattle. Nor could I perceive them, neither were they able to get out, but perished and sunk into the deep. Again I looked in the vision until those cataracts from that lofty roof were removed, and the fountains of the earth became equalized, while other depths were opened, into which the water began to descend until the dry ground appeared. The ship remained on the earth, the darkness receded, and it became light. Then the white cow, which became a man, went out of the ship, and the 3 cows with him. One of the 3 cows was white, resembling that cow. One of them was red as blood, and one of them was black. And the white cow left them. Then began wild beasts and birds to spring forth. Of all these the different kinds assembled together, lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, wild boars, foxes, rabbits, and the hunza, the sisset, the avist, kites, and funkus, and ravens. Then the white cow was born in the midst of them, and they began to bite each other, when the white cow, which was born in the midst of them, brought forth a wild ass and a white cow at the same time, and many wild asses. Then the white cow which was born brought forth a black wild sow and a white sheep. That wild sow also brought forth many swine, and that sheep brought forth 12 sheep. When those 12 sheep grew up, they delivered one of them to the asses. Again those asses delivered that sheep to the wolves, and he grew up in the midst of them. Then Yahweh brought the 11 sheep, that they might dwell and feed with him in the midst of the wolves. They multiplied, and there was abundance of pasture for them. But the wolves began to frighten and oppress them, while they destroyed their young ones, and they left their young in torrents of deep water. Now the sheep began to cry out on account of their young, and fled for refuge to their Adonai. One, however, was saved, escaped, and went away to the wild asses. I beheld the sheep moaning, crying, and petitioning to their Adonai with all their might, until Yahweh of the sheep descended at their voice from lofty habitation, went to them, and inspected them. He called to that sheep which had secretly stolen away from the wolves, and told him to make the wolves understand that they were not to touch the sheep. Then that sheep went to the wolves with the word of Yahweh, when another met him and proceeded with him. Both of them together entered the dwelling of the wolves, and conversing with them made them understand that henceforward they were not to touch the sheep. Afterwards I perceived the wolves greatly prevailing over the sheep with their whole force. The sheep cried out, and their Adonai came to them. He began to strike the wolves, who commenced a grievous lamentation, but the sheep were silent, nor from that time did they cry out. I then looked at them until they departed from the wolves. The eyes of the wolves were blind, who went out and followed them with all their might. But Yahweh of the sheep proceeded with them and conducted them. All his sheep followed him. His countenance terrific and splendid, and glorious was his aspect. Yet the wolves began to follow the sheep, until they overtook them in a certain lake of water. Then that lake became divided, the waters standing up on both sides before their face. And while the Adonai was conducting them, he placed himself between them and the wolves. The wolves, however, perceived not the sheep, but went into the midst of the lake, following them and running after them into the lake of water. But when they saw Yahweh of the sheep, they turned to fly from before his face. Then the water of the lake returned, and that suddenly, according to its nature, it became full and was raised up until it covered the wolves. And I saw that of all of them which had followed the sheep perished and were drowned. But the sheep passed over this water, proceeding to a wilderness, which was without both water and grass. And they began to open their eyes and to see. Then I beheld Yahweh of the sheep inspecting them, and giving them water and grass. The sheep was proceeding and conducting them. And when he had ascended the top of the lofty rock, Yahweh of the sheep sent him to them. Afterwards I perceived the Adonai standing before them, with an aspect terrific and severe. And when they all beheld him, they were frightened at his countenance. All of them were alarmed and trembled. They cried out after that sheep, and to the other sheep who had been with him, and who was in the midst of them, saying, We are not able to stand before our Adonai, or to look upon him. Then that sheep who conducted them went away and ascended the top of the rock. When the sheep began to grow blind and to wander from the path which he had shown them, but he knew it not. Their Adonai, however, was moved with great indignation against them, and when that sheep had learned, he descended from the top of the rock, and coming to them, found that there were many which had become blind and had wandered from his path. As soon as they beheld him, they feared and trembled at his presence, and became desirous of returning to their fold. Then that sheep, taking with him other sheep, went to those which had wandered, and afterwards began to kill them. They were terrified at his countenance. Then he caused those who had wandered to return, who went back to their fold. I likewise saw there in a vision that the sheep became a man, built a house for Yahweh of the sheep, and made them all stand in the house. I perceived also that the sheep which proceeded to meet the sheep, their conductor, died. I saw too that all the great sheep perished, while smaller ones rose up in their place, entered into a pasture, and approached a river of water. Then that sheep, their conductor, who became a man, was separated from them and died. All the sheep sought after him and cried for him with bitter lamentation. I saw likewise that they ceased to cry after that sheep and passed over the river of water, and that there arose other sheep, all of whom conducted them, instead of those who were dead and who had conducted them. Then I saw that the sheep entered into a goodly place, and a territory delectable and glorious. I saw also that they became satiated, that their house was in the midst of a delectable territory, and that sometimes their eyes were opened, and that sometimes they were blind, until another sheep arose and conducted them. He brought them all back, and their eyes were opened. Then dogs, foxes, and wild boars began to devour them, until again another sheep arose. The Adonai of the flock, one of themselves a ram, to conduct them. This ram began to butt on every side of those dogs, foxes, and wild boars, until they all perished. With his eyes he saw the ram in the midst of them, who had laid aside his glory. And he began to strike the sheep, treading upon them and behaving himself without dignity. Then their Adonai sent a sheep to a still different sheep, and raised him up to be a ram, and to conduct them instead of that sheep who had laid aside his glory. Going therefore to him, and conversing with him alone, he raised up that ram, and made him a prince and a leader of the flock. All the time that the dogs troubled the sheep, the first ram paid respect to this latter ram. Then the latter ram arose and fled away from before his face, and I saw that those dogs caused the first ram to fall. But the latter ram arose and conducted the smaller sheep. That ram likewise begat many sheep, and died. Then there was a smaller sheep, a ram, instead of him, which became a prince and a leader, conducting the flock. And the sheep increased in size and multiplied, and all the dogs and foxes and wild boars feared and fled away from him. That ram also struck and killed all the wild beasts, so that they could not again prevail in the midst of the sheep, nor at any time ever snatch them away. And that house was made large and wide, a lofty tower, being built upon it by the sheep, for Yahweh of the sheep. The house was low, but the tower was elevated and very high. Then Yahweh of the sheep stood upon that tower, and caused a full table to approach before him. Again I saw that those sheep wandered, and went various ways, forsaking that their house, and that their Adonai called to some of them, whom he sent to them. But these sheep began to kill, and when one of them was saved from slaughter, he leaped and cried out against those who were desirous of killing him. But Yahweh of the sheep delivered him from their hands, and made him ascend to him, and remain with him. He sent also many others to them to testify, and with lamentations to exclaim against them. Again I saw, when some of them forsook the house of their Adonai and his tower, wandering on all sides and growing blind, I saw that Yahweh of the sheep made a great slaughter among them in their pasture, until they cried out to him in consequence of that slaughter. Then he departed from the place of his habitation, and left them in the power of lions, tigers, wolves, and the hyenas, and in the power of foxes and of every beast. And the wild beasts began to tear them. I saw too that he forsook the house of their fathers and their tower, giving them all into the power of lions, to tear and devour them into the power of every beast. Then I began to cry out with all my might, imploring Yahweh of the sheep, and showing him how the sheep were devoured by all the beasts of prey. But he looked on in silence, rejoicing that they were devoured and swallowed up and carried off, and leaving them in the power of every beast for food. He called also 70 shepherds and resigned to them the sheep, that they might overlook them, saying to them and to their associates, every one of you henceforward overlook the sheep, and whatsoever I command you, do, and I will deliver them to you numbered. I will tell you which of them shall be slain, these destroy. And he delivered the sheep to them. Stand and watch everything which the shepherd shall do to these sheep, for many more of them shall perish than I have commanded. Of every excess and slaughter which the shepherd shall commit, there shall be an account, as how many may have perished by my command, and how many they may have destroyed of their own heads. Of all the destruction by each of the shepherds, there shall be an account, and according to the number I will cause a recital to be made before me, of how many they have destroyed of their own heads, and how many they have delivered up to destruction, that I may have this testimony against them, that I may know all their proceedings, and that delivering to them, I may see what they will do, whether they will act as I have commanded them or not. However, they shall be ignorant, neither shall you make any explanation to them, neither shall you reprove them, but there shall be an account of all the destruction done by them in their respective seasons. Then they began to kill and destroy more than it was commanded them. And they left the sheep in the power of the lions, so that very many of them were devoured and swallowed up by lions and tigers, and wild boars preyed upon them. That tower they burnt and overthrew that house. Then I grieved extremely on account of the tower, and because the house of the sheep was overthrown. Neither was I afterwards able to perceive whether they again entered that house. The shepherds likewise and their associates delivered them to all the wild beasts, that they might devour them. Each of them in his season, according to his number, was delivered up. Each of them, one with another, was described in a sefer. How many of them, one with another, were destroyed in a sefer. More, however, was than was ordered, everyone killed and destroyed. Then I began to weep and was greatly indignant on the account of the sheep. In like manner also I saw in the vision him who wrote, how he wrote down one destroyed by the shepherds every day. He ascended, remained, and exhibited each of his sephirim to Yahweh of all the sheep, all which they had done, and all which each of them had made away with, and all which they had delivered up to destruction. He took the sefer up in his hands and read it, sealed it, and deposited it. After I saw this, I saw shepherds overlooking for 12 hours. And behold, 3 of the sheep departed, arrived and went in, and began building all which was fallen down of that house. But the wild boars hindered them, although they prevailed not. Again they began to build as before, and raised up that tower, which was called a lofty tower. And again they began to place before the tower a table, with every impure and unclean kind of bread upon it. Moreover also all the sheep were blind and could not see, as were the shepherds likewise. Thus were they delivered up to the shepherds for a great destruction, who trod them under foot and devoured them. Yet was their Adonai silent until all the sheep in the field were destroyed. The shepherds and the sheep were all mixed together, but they did not save them from the power of the beasts. Then he who wrote the Sefer ascended, exhibited it, and read it at the residence of Yahweh of the sheep. He petitioned him for them and prayed, pointing out every act of the shepherds and testifying before him against them all. Then taking the Sefer, he deposited it with him and departed. And I observed during the time that thus 37 shepherds were overlooking, all of whom finished in their respective periods as the first. Others then received them into their hands, that they might overlook them in their respective periods, every shepherd in his own period. Afterwards I saw in the vision that all the birds of heaven arrived, eagles, the avest, kites, and ravens. The eagle instructed them all. They began to devour the sheep, to peck out their eyes, and to eat up their bodies. The sheep cried out, for their bodies were devoured by the birds. I also cried out and groaned in my sleep against the shepherd which overlooked the flock. And I looked while the sheep were eaten up by the dogs, by the eagles, and by the kites. They neither left them, their body, nor their skin, nor their muscles, until their bones alone remained, until their bones fell upon the ground, and the sheep became diminished. I observed likewise during the time that 23 shepherds were overlooking, who completed in their respective periods 58 periods. Then were small lambs born of those white sheep, who began to open their eyes and to see, crying out to the sheep. The sheep, however, cried not out to them, neither did they hear what they uttered to them, but were deaf, blind, and obdurate in the greatest degrees. I saw in the vision that ravens flew down upon those lambs, that they seized one of them, and that tearing the sheep in pieces, they devoured them. I saw also that the horns grew upon those lambs, and that the ravens lighted down upon their horns. I saw too that a large horn sprouted out on an animal among the sheep, and that their eyes were opened. He looked at them. Their eyes were wide open, and he cried out to them. Then the Dabela saw him, all of whom ran to him. And besides this, all the eagles, the avest, the ravens, and the kites were still carrying off the sheep, flying down upon them and devouring them. The sheep were silent, but the Dabela lamented and cried out. Then the ravens contended and struggled with them. They wished among them to break his horn, but they prevailed not over him. I looked on them until the shepherds, the eagles, the avest, and the kites came, who cried out to the ravens to break the horn of the Dabela, to contend with him and to kill him. But he struggled with them and cried out that help might come to him. Then I perceived that the man came who had written down the names of the shepherds, and who ascended up before Yahweh of the sheep. He brought assistance and caused everyone to see him descending to the help of the Dabela. I perceived likewise that Yahweh of the sheep came to them in wrath, while all those who saw him fled away. All fell down in his tabernacle before his face, while all the eagles, the avest, ravens, and kites assembled and brought with them all the sheep of the field. All came together and strove to break the horn of the Dabela. Then I saw that the man who wrote the Sefer at the word of Yahweh opened the Sefer of destruction, of that destruction which the last 12 shepherds wrought, and pointed out before Yahweh of the sheep, that they destroyed more than those who preceded them. I saw also that Yahweh of the sheep came to them and taking in his hand the scepter of his wrath, seized the earth, which became rent asunder, while all the beasts and the birds of heaven fell from the sheep and sunk into the earth, which closed over them. I saw too that a large sword was given to the sheep, who went forth against all the beasts of the field to slay them. But all the beasts and birds of heaven fled away from before their face. And I saw a throne erected in a delectable land. Upon this sat Yahweh of the sheep, who received all the sealed sephirim, which were opened before him. Then Yahweh called the first 7 white ones and commanded them to bring before him the first of the first stars, which preceded the stars, whose form partly resembled that of horses, the first star, which fell down first, and they brought them all before him. And he spoke to the man who wrote in his presence, who was one of the 7 white ones, saying, Take those 70 shepherds to whom I delivered up the sheep, and receiving them killed more of them than I commanded. Behold, I saw them all bound and standing before him. First came on the trial of the stars, which being judged and found guilty, went to the place of punishment. They thrust them into the deep full of flaming fire, and full of pillars of fire. Then the 70 shepherds were judged, and being found guilty, were thrust into the flaming abyss. At that time likewise I perceived that one abyss was thus opened in the midst of the earth, which was full of fire. And to this were brought the blind sheep, which being judged and found guilty, were all thrust into that abyss of fire on the earth, and burnt. The abyss was on the right of that house, and I saw the sheep burning, and their bones consuming. I stood beholding him emerge that ancient house, while they brought out its pillars, every plant in it, and the ivory enfolding it. They brought it out and deposited it in a place on the right side of the earth. I also saw that Yahweh of the sheep produced a new house, great and loftier than the former, which he bound by the former circular spot. All its pillars were new, and its ivory new, as well as more abundant than the former ancient, which he had brought out. And while all the sheep were in the midst of it, all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of heaven fell down and worshipped him, petitioning them and obeying them in everything. Then those 3 who were clothed in white, and who, holding me by my hand, had before caused me to ascend, while the hand of him who spoke helped me, raised me up and placed me in the midst of the sheep, before the judgment took place. The sheep were all white, with wool long and pure. Then all who had perished and had been destroyed, every beast of the field and every bird of heaven, assembled in that house, while Yahweh of the sheep rejoiced with great joy, because all were good and had come back again to his dwelling. And I saw that they laid down the sword which had been given to the sheep, and returned it to his house, sealing it up in the presence of Yahweh. All the sheep would have been enclosed in that house had it been capable of containing them. And the eyes of all were open, gazing on the good one, nor was there one among them who did not behold him. I likewise perceived that the house was large, wide, and extremely full. I saw too that a white cow was born, whose horns were great, and that all the beasts of the field and all the birds of heaven were alarmed at him and entreated him at all times. Then I saw that the nature of all of them was changed, and that they became white cows, and that the first in the midst of them spoke, when that word was a wild ox. Upon the head of that wild ox were great and black horns. While Yahweh of the sheep rejoiced over them and over all the cows, I lay down in the midst of them. I awoke and saw the whole. This is the vision which I saw, lying down and waking. Then I blessed Yahweh of righteousness and gave glory to him. Afterwards I wept abundantly, nor did my tears cease, so that I became incapable of enduring it. While I was looking on, they flowed on account of what I saw, for all was come and gone by, every individual circumstance respecting the conduct of mankind was seen by me. In that night I remembered my former dream, and therefore wept and was troubled, because I had seen that vision. And now, my son, Methuselah, call to me all your brethren and assemble for me all the children of your mother. For a voice calls me, and the Ruach is poured out upon me, that I may show you everything which shall happen to you forever. Then Methuselah went, called to him all his brethren, and assembled his kindred. And conversing with all his children in truth, said, Hear, my children, every word of your father, and listen in uprightness to the voice of my mouth. For I would gain your attention while I address you. My beloved, be attached to integrity and walk in it. Approach not integrity with a double heart, nor be associated with double-minded men, but walk, my children, in righteousness, which will conduct you in good paths, and let truth be your companion. For I know that oppression will exist and prevail on earth, that on earth great punishment shall in the end take place, and that there shall be a consummation of all iniquity, which shall be cut off from its root, and every fabric shall pass away. Iniquity, however, shall again be renewed and consummated on earth. Every act of crime, every act of oppression and impiety shall be a second time embraced. When therefore iniquity, sin, blasphemy, tyranny, and every work shall increase, and transgression, impiety, and uncleanness also shall increase, upon them all shall great punishment be inflicted from heaven. The holy Yahweh shall go forth in wrath, and upon them all shall great punishment from heaven be inflicted. The holy Yahweh shall go forth in wrath, and with punishment, that he may execute judgment upon the earth. In those days oppression shall be cut off from its roots, and iniquity with fraud shall be eradicated, perishing from under heaven. All the idols of the nations shall be surrendered with its inhabitants. With fire shall it be burnt. They shall be brought from every part of the earth and be cast into a judgment of fire. They shall perish in wrath, and by a judgment overpowering them forever. Righteousness shall be raised up from slumber, and wisdom shall be raised up and conferred upon them. Then shall the roots of iniquity be cut off, sinners perish by the sword, and blasphemers be annihilated everywhere. Those who meditate oppression and those who blaspheme by the sword shall perish. And now, my children, I will describe and point out to you the path of righteousness and the path of oppression. I will again point them out to you, that you may know what is to come. Hear now, my children, and walk in the path of righteousness, but shun that of oppression. For all who walk in the path of iniquity shall perish forever. That which was written by Enoch, he wrote all this instruction of wisdom for every man of dignity and every judge of the earth. For all my children who shall dwell upon the earth, and for subsequent generations, conducting themselves uprightly and peaceably, Let not your ruach be grieved on account of the times, for the Holy, the Great One, has prescribed a period to all. Let the righteous man arise from slumber. Let him arise and proceed in the path of righteousness, in all its paths, and let him advance in goodness and eternal clemency. Mercy shall be showed to the righteous man. Upon him shall be conferred integrity and power forever. In goodness and in righteousness shall he exist, and shall walk in everlasting light. But sin shall perish in eternal darkness, nor be seen from that time forward forevermore. After this, Enoch began to speak from a sefer, and Enoch said, concerning the children of righteousness, concerning the elect of the world, and concerning the plant of righteousness and integrity. These things will I speak of, and I will explain to you, my children. I am Enoch, in consequence of that which has been shown to me from my heavenly vision, and from the voice of the watchers and the holy ones. Have I acquired knowledge, and from the tablet of heaven have I acquired understanding. Enoch then began to speak from a sefer and said, I have been born the 7th in the 1st week, while judgment and righteousness wait with patience. But after me in the 2nd week great wickedness shall arise, and fraud shall spring forth. In that week the end of the first shall take place, in which man will be saved. But when it is completed, iniquity shall grow up, and he shall execute the decree upon sinners. Afterwards, in the 3rd week, during its completion, a man of the plant of righteousness, judgment shall be selected. And after him the plant of all righteousness shall come forever. Subsequently, in the 4th week, during its completion, the visions of the holy and the righteous shall be seen, the order of generation after generation, and a habitation shall be made for them. Then in the 5th week, during its completion, the house of glory and of dominion shall be erected forever. After that, in the 6th week, all those who are in it shall be darkened. The hearts of all of them shall be forgetful of wisdom. And in it shall a man arise and come forth. And during its completion he shall burn the house of dominion with fire, and all the race of the elect root shall be dispersed. Afterwards, in the 7th week, a perverse generation shall arise. Abundant shall it be its deeds, and all its deeds perverse. During its completion, the righteous shall be selected from the everlasting plant of righteousness, and to them shall be given the 7-fold doctrine of his whole creation. Afterwards, there shall be another week, the 8th of righteousness, to which shall be given a sword to execute judgment and justice upon all oppressors. Sinners shall be delivered up into the hands of the righteous, who during its completion shall acquire habitations by their righteousness. And the house of the great king shall be established for celebrations forever. After this, in the 9th week, shall the judgment of righteousness be revealed to the whole world. Every work of the wicked shall disappear from the whole earth. The world shall be marked for destruction, and all men shall be on the watch for the path of integrity. And after this, on the 7th day of the 10th week, there shall be an everlasting judgment, which shall be executed upon the watchers. And a spacious eternal heaven shall spring forth in the midst of the angels. The former heaven shall depart and pass away. A renewed heaven shall appear, and all the celestial powers shine with 7-fold splendor forever. Afterwards, likewise, shall there be many weeks, which shall externally exist in goodness and in righteousness. Neither shall sin be named there forever and ever. Who is there of all the children of men capable of hearing the voice of the Holy One without emotion? Who is there capable of thinking his thoughts? Who is capable of contemplating all the workmanship of heaven? Who of comprehending the deeds of heaven? He may behold its animation, but not its ruach. He may be capable of conversing, but not of ascending. He may see all the boundaries of these things and meditate upon them, but he can make nothing like them. Who of all the men is able to understand the breadth and length of the earth? By whom have been seen the dimensions of all these things? Is it every man who is capable of comprehending the extent of heaven, what its elevation is, and by what it is supported? How many are the numbers of the stars, and where all the luminaries remain at rest? And now, let me exhort you, my children, to love righteousness and to walk in it, for the cycles of righteousness are worthy of acceptation, but the paths of iniquity shall suddenly fail and be diminished. To men of note in their generation, the paths of oppression and death are revealed, but they keep far from them and do not follow them. Now too, let me exhort you, righteous, not to walk in the paths of evil and oppression, nor in the paths of death. Approach them not, that you may not perish, but covet and choose for yourselves righteousness and a good life. Walk in the paths of peace, that you may live and be found worthy. Retain my words in your inmost thoughts, and obliterate them not from your hearts. For I know that sinners counsel men to commit crime craftily. They are not found in every place, nor does every counsel possess a little of them. Woe to those who build iniquity and oppression, and who lay the foundation of fraud, for suddenly shall they be subverted, and never obtain peace. Woe to those who build up their houses with crime, for from their very foundations shall their houses be demolished, and by the sword they shall fall. Those too who acquire gold and silver shall justly and suddenly perish. Woe to you who are rich, for in your riches have you trusted, but from your riches you shall be removed, because you have not remembered El Elyon in the days of your prosperity. You have committed blasphemy and iniquity, and are destined to the day of the effusion of blood, to the day of darkness, and to the day of the great judgment. This I will declare and point out to you, that he who created you will destroy you. When you fall, he will not show mercy, but your Creator will rejoice in your destruction. Let those, then, who shall be righteous among you in those days detest sinners and the wicked. Oh, that my eyes were clouds of water, that I may weep over you and pour forth my tears like rain, and rest from the sorrow of my heart. Who has permitted you to hate and to transgress? Judgment shall overtake you, you sinners. The righteous shall not fear the wicked, because El Elohim will again bring them into your power, that you may avenge yourselves of them according to your pleasure. Woe to you who shall so be bound by execrations, that you cannot be released from them, the remedy being far removed from you on account of your sins. Woe to you who recompense your neighbor with evil, for you shall be recompensed according to your works. Woe to you, false witnesses, you who aggravate iniquity, for you shall suddenly perish. Woe to you, sinners, for you reject the righteous, for you receive or reject those who do iniquity, and their yoke shall prevail over you. Wait in hope, you righteous, for suddenly shall sinners perish from before you, and you shall exercise dominion over them, according to your will. In the day of the sufferings of sinners, your offspring shall be elevated and lifted up like eagles. Your nest shall be more exalted than that of the avest. You shall ascend and enter into the cavities of the earth, and into the clefts of the rocks forever, like conies from the sight of the wicked, who shall groan over you and weep like sirens. You shall not fear those who trouble you, for restoration shall be yours. A splendid light shall shine around you, and the voice of tranquility shall be heard from heaven. Woe to you, sinners, for your wealth makes you resemble Kodashim, but your hearts reproach you that you are sinners. This word shall testify against you for the remembrance of crime. Woe to you who feed upon the glory of the grain and drink the strength of the deepest spring, and in your power tread down the humble. Woe to you who drink water at pleasure, for suddenly shall you be recompensed, consumed and withered, because you have forsaken the foundation of life. Woe to you who act iniquitously, fraudulently, and blasphemously. There shall be remembrance against you for evil. Woe to you, powerful, who with power strike down righteousness, for the day of your destruction shall come. At that very time, many and good days shall be the portion of the righteous, at the period of your judgment. The righteous are confident that sinners will be disgraced and perish in the day of their iniquity. You shall yourselves be conscious of it, for El Elyon will remember your destruction, and the angels shall rejoice over it. What will you do, sinners? And where will you fly in the day of judgment? When you shall hear the words of the prayer of the righteous? You are not like them who in this respect witness against you. You are associates of sinners. In those days shall the prayers of the righteous come up before Yahweh, when the day of your judgment shall arrive, and every circumstance of your iniquity be related before the great and the Holy One. Your faces shall be covered with shame, while every deed strengthened by crime shall be rejected. Woe unto you, sinners, who in the midst of the sea and on the dry land are those against whom an evil record exists. Woe to you who squander silver and gold, not obtained in righteousness, and say, we are rich, possess wealth, and have acquired everything which we can desire. Now then will we do whatsoever we are disposed to do, for we have amassed silver, our barns are full, and the husbandmen of our families are like overflowing water. Like water shall your falsehood pass away, for your wealth will not be permanent, but shall suddenly ascend from you, because you have obtained it in all iniquitously. To extreme malediction shall you be delivered up. And now I swear to you, crafty as well as simple ones, that you, often contemplating the earth, you men, clothe yourselves more elegantly than married women, and both together more so than a woman, and more colored than a girl, everywhere in majesty and in magnificence, in authority and in silver, but gold, purple, honor, and wealth like water flow away. Erudition, therefore, and wisdom are not theirs. Thus shall they perish, together with their riches, with all their glory, and with all their honors. While with disgrace, with slaughter, and in extreme penury shall their ruachot be thrust into a furnace of fire. I have sworn to you, sinners, that neither mountain nor hill has been or shall be subservient to woman. Neither in this way has crime been sent down to us upon earth. But men of their own heads have invented it, and greatly shall those who give it efficiency be execrated. Barrenness shall not be previously inflicted on woman, but on account of the work of her hands shall she die childless. I have sworn to you, sinners, by the Holy and the Great One, that all your evil deeds are disclosed in the heavens, and that none of your oppressive acts are concealed in secret. Think not in your minds, neither say in your hearts, that every crime is not manifested and seen. In heaven it is daily written down before El Elyon. Henceforward shall it be manifested, for every act of oppression which you commit shall be daily recorded until the period of your condemnation. Woe to you, simple ones, for you shall perish in your simplicity. To the wise you will not listen, and that which is good you shall not obtain. Now therefore know that you are destined to the day of destruction, nor hope that sinners shall live. But in process of time you shall die, for you are not marked for redemption, but are destined to the day of the great judgment, to the day of distress and the extreme ignominy of your souls. Woe to you, obdurate in heart, who commit crime and feed on blood. Whence do you feed on good things, drink, and are satiated? Is it not because our Adonai, El Elyon, has abundantly supplied every good thing upon the earth? To you there shall not be peace. Woe to you who love the deeds of iniquity. Why do you hope for that which is good? Know that you shall be given up into the hands of the righteous, who shall cut off your necks, slay you, and show you no compassion. Woe to you who rejoice in the trouble of the righteous, for a grave shall not be dug for you. Woe to you who frustrate the word of the righteous, for to you there shall be no hope of life. Woe to you who write down the word of falsehood and the word of the wicked, for their falsehood they record, that they may hear and not forget folly. To them there shall be no peace, but they shall surely die suddenly. Woe to them who act impiously, who laud and honor the word of falsehood. You have been lost in perdition, and have never led a virtuous life. Woe to you who change the words of integrity. They transgress against the eternal Torah, and cause the heads of those who are not sinners to be trodden down upon the earth. In those days, O righteous, shall have been deemed worthy of having your prayers rise up in remembrance, shall have deposited them in testimony before the angels, that they might record the sins of the sinners in the presence of El Elyon. In those days the nation shall be overthrown, but the families of the nation shall rise up in the day of perdition. In those days they who become pregnant shall go forth, carry off their children, and forsake them. Their offspring shall slip from them, and while suckling they shall forsake them. They shall never return to them, and never instruct their beloved. Again I swear to you, sinners, that crime has been prepared for the day of blood, which never ceases. They shall worship stones and engraven golden, silver, and wooden images. They shall worship impure ruach devils and every idol in temples, but no help shall be obtained for them. Their hearts shall become impious through their folly, and their eyes be blinded with the fear of their hearts. In their visionary dreams shall they be impious and superstitious, lying in all their actions and worshipping a stone. Altogether they shall perish. But in those days blessed shall they be, to whom the word of wisdom is delivered, who point out and pursue the path of El Elyon, who walk in the way of righteousness, and who act not impiously with the impious. They shall be saved. Woe to you who expand the crime of your neighbor, for in Sheol shall you be slain. Woe to you who lay the foundation of sin and deceit, and who are bitter on earth, for on it you shall be consumed. Woe to you who build your houses by the labor of others, every part of which is constructed with brick and with a stone of crime. I tell you that you shall not obtain peace. Woe to you who despise the extent of the everlasting inheritance of your fathers, while your souls follow after idols, for to you there shall be no tranquility. Woe to them who commit iniquity and give aid to blasphemy, who slay their neighbor until the day of the great judgment, for your glory shall fall. Malevolence shall be put into your hearts, and the ruach of his wrath shall stir you up, that every one of you may perish by the sword. Then shall all the righteous and the holy remember your crimes. In those days shall fathers be struck down with their children in the presence of each other, and brethren with their brethren shall fall dead, until the river shall flow from their blood. For a man shall not restrain his hand from his children, nor from his children's children. His mercy will be to kill them. Nor shall the sinner restrain his hand from his honored brother. From the dawn of day to the setting of the sun shall the slaughter continue. The horse shall wade up to his breast, and the chariot shall sink to its axle in the blood of sinners. In those days the angels shall descend into the places of concealment and gather together in one spot all that have assisted in crime. In that day shall El Elyon rise up to execute the great judgment upon all sinners and to commit the guardianship of all the righteous and holy to the holy angels, that they may protect them as the apple of an eye, until every evil and every crime be annihilated. Whether or not the righteous sleep securely, wise men shall then truly perceive, and the sons of the earth shall understand every word of that sefer, knowing that their riches cannot save them in the ruin of their crimes. Woe to you sinners, when you shall be afflicted on account of righteous in the day of the great trouble, shall be burnt in the fire and be recompensed according to your deeds. Woe to you, perverted in heart, who are watchful to obtain an accurate knowledge of evil and to discover terrors. No one shall assist you. Woe to you, sinners, for with the words of your mouth and with the work of your hands have you acted impiously. In the flame of a blazing fire shall you be burnt. And now know that the angels shall inquire into your conduct in heaven, of the sun, the moon, and the stars, respecting your sins. For upon earth you shall exercise jurisdiction over the righteous. Every cloud shall bear witness against you, the snow, the dew, and the rain. For all of them shall be withheld from you, that they may not descend upon you, nor become subservient to your crimes. Now then, bring gifts of salutation to the rain, that not being withheld, it may descend upon you, and to the dew, if it has received from you gold and silver. But when the frost, snow, cold, and every snowy wind, and every suffering belonging to them, fall upon you, in those days you will be utterly incapable of standing before them. Attentively consider heaven, all you progeny of heaven, and all the works of El Elyon. Fear him, nor conduct yourselves criminally before him. If he shut up the windows of heaven, restraining the rain and the dew, that it may not descend upon the earth on your account, what will you do? And if he send his wrath upon you and upon all your deeds, you are not they who can supplicate him. You who utter against his righteousness language proud and powerful, to you there shall be no peace. Do you not see the commanders of ships, how their vessels are tossed about by the waves, torn to pieces by the winds and exposed to the greatest peril? That they therefore fear because their whole property is embarked with them on the ocean, and that they forebode evil in their hearts because it may swallow them up, and they may perish in it? Is not the whole sea, all its waters and all its commotion, the work of him, El Elyon, of him who has sealed up all its exertions and girded it on every side with sand? At his rebuke dried up and alarmed, while all its fish with everything in it die. And will you not, sinners who are on earth, fear him? Is not he the maker of heaven and earth, and of all things which are in heaven in them? And who has given erudition and wisdom to all that move upon the earth and over the sea? Are not the commanders of ships terrified at the ocean? And shall not sinners be terrified at El Elyon? In those days when he shall cast the calamity of fire upon you, whither will you fly, and where will you be safe? And when he sends forth his word against you, are you not spared and terrified? All the luminaries are agitated with great fear, and all the earth is spared while it trembles and suffers anxiety. All the angels fulfill the commands received by them, and are desirous of being concealed from the presence of the great glory, while the children of the earth are alarmed and troubled. But you, sinners, are forever accursed. To you there shall be no peace. Fear not, souls of righteous, but wait with patient hope for the day of your death in righteousness. Grieve not because your souls descend in great trouble, with the groaning, lamentation, and sorrow to the receptacle of the dead. In your lifetime, your bodies have not received a recompense in proportion to your goodness, but in the period of your existence have sinners existed, in the period of execration and of punishment. And when you die, sinners say concerning you, as we die, the righteous die. What profit have they in their works? Behold, like us, they expire in sorrow and in darkness. What advantage have they over us? Henceforth we are equal. What will be within their grasp, and what before their eyes forever? For behold, they are dead, and never will they again perceive the light. I say unto you, sinners, you have been satisfied with meat and drink, with the plunder of men, and repine with sin, with the acquisition of wealth, and with the sight of good days. Have you not marked the righteous, how their end is in peace? For no oppression is found in them even to the day of their death. They perish and are as if they were not, while their souls descend in trouble to the receptacle of the dead. But now I swear to you, righteous, by the greatness of his splendor and his glory, by his illustrious kingdom and by his majesty, to you I swear, that I comprehend this mystery, that I have read the tablet of heaven, have seen the writing of the holy ones, and have discovered what is written and impressed on it concerning you. that all goodness, joy, and glory has been prepared for you and been written down for the ruach of them who die eminently righteous and good. To you it shall be given in return for your troubles, and your portion shall far exceed the portion of the living. The ruach of you who die in righteousness shall exist and rejoice. Their ruach shall exult, and their remembrance shall be before the face of El Elyon from generation to generation. Nor shall they now fear disgrace. Woe to you, sinners, when you die in your sins, and they who are like you say respecting you, blessed are the sinners, they have lived up their whole period, and now they die in happiness and in wealth. Distress and slaughter they knew not while they are alive. In honor they die, nor ever in their lifetime did judgment overtake them. Has it not been shown to them that to the receptacle of the dead their souls shall be made to descend? Their evil deeds shall become their greatest torment? Into darkness, into the snare, and into the flame, which shall burn to the great judgment, shall their ruach enter, and the great judgment shall take effect for ever and ever. Woe to you, for you there shall be no peace. Neither can you say to the righteous and to the good who are alive, in the days of our trouble have we been afflicted. Every trouble have we seen, and many evil things have suffered. Our ruach have been consumed, lessened, and diminished. We have perished, nor has there been a possibility of help for us in the word or in deed. We have found none, but have been tormented and destroyed. We have not expected to live day after day. We hoped, indeed, to have been the head, but we have become the tail. We have been afflicted when we have exerted ourselves, but we have been devoured by sinners and the wicked. Their yoke has been heavy upon us. Those have exercised dominion over us who detest and who goad us, and to those who hate us have we humbled our neck. But they have shown no compassion toward us. We have been desirous of escaping from them, that we might fly away and be at rest. But we have found no place to which we could fly and be secure from them. We have sought an asylum with princes and in our distress, and have cried out to those who were devouring us. But our cry has not been regarded, nor have they been disposed to hear our voice, but rather to assist those who plunder and devour us, those who diminish us and hide their oppression, who remove not their yoke from us, but devour, enervate, and slay us, who conceal our slaughter, nor remember that they have lifted up their hands against us. I swear to you, righteous, that in heaven the angels record your goodness before the glory of El Elyon. Wait with patient hope, for formerly you have been disgraced with evil and with affliction, but now shall you shine like the luminaries of heaven. You shall be seen, and the gates of heaven shall be opened to you. Your cries have cried for judgment, and it has appeared to you. For an account of all your sufferings shall be required from the princes and from everyone who has assisted your plunders. Wait with patient hope, nor relinquish your confidence, for great joy shall be yours, like that of the angels of heaven. Conduct yourselves as you may, still you shall not be concealed in the day of the great judgment. You shall not be found like sinners, and eternal condemnation shall be far from you, so long as the world exists. And now fear not, righteous, when you see sinners flourishing and prosperous in their ways. Be not associates with them, but keep yourselves at a distance from their oppression. Be you associated with the host of heaven. You sinners say, all our transgressions shall be not taken account of, or be recorded, but all your transgressions shall be recorded daily. And be assured by me that light and darkness, day and night, behold all your transgressions. Be not impious in your thoughts, lie not, surrender not to the word of uprightness. Lie not against the word of the holy and the Al Elohim. Glorify not your idols, for all your lying and all your impiety is not for the righteousness, but for great crime. Now I will point out a mystery. Many sinners shall turn and transgress against the word of uprightness. They shall speak evil things, they shall utter falsehood, and create a great creation, and compose Sephirim in their own words. But when they shall write all my words correctly in their own languages, they shall neither change or diminish them, but shall write them all correctly, all which from the first I have uttered concerning them. Another mystery also I point out. To the righteous and to the wise shall be given Sephirim of joy, of integrity, and of great wisdom. To them shall Sephirim be given, in which they shall believe, and in which they shall rejoice. And all the righteous shall be rewarded, who from thee shall acquire the knowledge of every upright path. In those days, says Yahweh, they shall call to the children of the earth and make them listen to their wisdom. Show them that you are their leaders, and that remuneration shall take place over the whole earth. For I and my Son will forever hold communion with them in the paths of righteousness. While they are still alive, peace shall be yours. Rejoice, children of integrity, in the truth. After a time, my son, Methuselah, took a woman for his son, Lamech. She became pregnant by him and brought forth a child, the flesh of which was as white as snow and red as a rose, the hair of whose head was white like wool and long, and whose eyes were beautiful. When he opened them, he illuminated all the house like the sun. The whole house abounded with light. And when he was taken from the hand of the midwife, Lamech his father became afraid of him, and flying away came to his own father Methuselah and said, I have begotten a son, unlike others. He is not of men, but, resembling the offspring of the angels of heaven, is of a different nature, being altogether unlike to us. His eyes are as the rays of the sun, his countenance glorious, and he looks not as if he belonged to me, but to the angels. I am afraid lest something miraculous should take place on the earth in his days. And now, my father, let me entreat and request you to go to our progenitor Shinnok and learn from him the truth. From his residence is with the angels. When Methuselah heard the words of his son, he came to me at the extremities of the earth, for he had been informed that I was there, and he cried out. I heard his voice and went to him, saying, Behold, I am here, my son, since you have come to me. He answered and said, On account of a great event have I come to you, and on account of a sight difficult have I approached you. And now, my father, hear me, for to my son Lamech a child has been born, who resembles not him, and whose nature is not like the nature of man. His color is whiter than snow, he is redder than the rose. The hair of his head is whiter than white wool, His eyes are like the rays of the sun, and when he opened them, he illuminated the whole house. When also he was taken from the hand of the midwife, his father Lamech feared and fled to me, believing not what belonged to him, but that he resembled the angels of heaven. And behold, I come to you, that you might point out to me the truth. Then I, Shinnok, answered and said, Yahweh will effect a new thing upon the earth. This have I explained, and seen in a vision. I have shown you that in the generations of Yared my father, those who were from heaven disregarded the word of Yahweh. Behold, they committed crimes, laid aside their class, and intermingled with women. With them also they transgressed, married with them, and begat children, who were not like spiritual beings, but creatures of flesh. A great destruction therefore shall come upon all the earth, a deluge, a great destruction shall take place in 1 year. This child which is born to your son shall survive on the earth, and his 3 sons shall be saved with him. When all mankind who on earth shall die, he shall be safe. And his posterity shall beget on the earth giants, not spiritual, but carnal. Upon the earth shall a great punishment be inflicted, and it shall be washed from all corruption. Now therefore inform your son Lamech, that he who is born is his child in truth, and he shall call his name Noach, for he shall be to you a survivor. He and his children shall be saved from the corruption which shall take place in the world, from all the sin and from all the iniquity which shall be consummated on earth in his days. Afterward shall greater impiety take place than that which had been before consummated on the earth. For I am acquainted with holy mysteries, which Yahweh himself has discovered and explained to me, and which I have read in the tablets of heaven. In them I saw it written that generation after generation shall transgress, until a righteous race shall arise, until transgression and crime perish from off the earth, until all goodness come upon it. And now, my son, go tell your son Lamech that the child which is born in his child in truth, and that there is no deception. When Methuselah heard the word of his father Shinnok, who had shown him every secret thing, he returned with understanding and called the name of that child Noach, because he was to console the earth on account of all its destruction. Another sefer which Shinnok wrote for his son Methuselah, and for those who should come after him, and guard their purity of conduct in the latter days. You who have labored shall wait in those days until the evildoers be consumed and the power of the guilty be annihilated. Wait until sin pass away, for their names shall be blotted out of the holy Sepharim. Their seed shall be destroyed, and their ruachot slain. They shall cry out and lament in the invisible waste, and in the bottomless fire they shall burn. There I perceived, as it were, a cloud which could not be seen through, for from the depth of it I was unable to look upwards. I beheld also a flame of fire blazing brightly, and, as it were, glittering mountains whirled around and agitated from side to side. Then I inquired of one of the holy angels who was with me, and said, What is splendid? For it is not heaven, but a flame of fire alone which blazes, and the clamor of exclamation of woe and of great suffering. He said, There into that place which you behold shall be thrust the ruachot of sinners and blasphemers, of those who shall do evil and who shall pervert all which Elohim has spoken by the mouth of the prophets, all which they ought to do. For respecting these things there shall be writings and impressions above in heaven, that the angels may read them and know what shall happen both to sinners and to the ruachot of the humble, to those who have suffered in their bodies, but have been rewarded by Elohim, who have been injuriously treated by wicked men, who have loved Elohim, who have been attached neither to gold nor silver, nor to any good thing in the world, but have given their bodies to torment. To those who from the period of their birth have not been covetous of earthly riches, but have guarded themselves as a breath passing away. Such has been their conduct, and much has Yahweh tried them, and their ruachot have been found pure, that they might bless his name. All their blessings have I related in a sefer, and he has rewarded them, for they have been found to love heaven with an everlasting aspiration. While they have been trodden down by wicked men, they have heard from them revilings and blasphemies, and have been ignominiously treated, while they were blessing me. And now will I call the ruachot of the good from the generation of light, and will change those who have been born in darkness, who have not in their bodies been recompensed with glory, as their belief may have merited. I will bring them into the splendid light of those who love my holy name, and I will place each of them on a throne of glory his own, and they shall beat rest during unnumbered periods. Righteous is the judgment of Elohim, for to the believing shall he give belief in the habitations of uprightness. They shall see those who have been born in darkness, unto darkness shall be cast, while the righteous shall be at rest. Sinners shall cry out, beholding them, while they exist in splendor and proceed forwards to the days and periods prescribed to them.